Travelling between districts barred completely. More roadblocks set up. Government Medical Officers Association warned that if social distancing is not carried out, the number of COVID-19 cases is set to increase rapidly. Curfew will be lifted for 6 hours for 16 districts. Wholesale shops to be opened for the sale of essential items. Permission granted for transportation. Prince Charles tests positive for COVID-19.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. Another patient who recovered from the COVID-19 in Sri Lanka has left the IDH hospital. Accordingly, the number of patients who recovered from the virus in the country is now at 3. The number of patients affected by the COVID-19, the number of confirmed cases, now stands at 102. Minister of Health Pavitra Wanyarachchi said that no patients were reported today as at 4:30 p.m. Accordingly, the number of COVID-19 patients receiving treatment are at the number of 99, and 225 people being suspected of being contracted with the virus are under medical inspection. They have been monitored at the National Institute of Infectious Diseases, or the IDH, the Valikanda Base Hospital and the Mullaeriyawa Base Hospital. With the situation like this in the country, with the curfew being imposed and the curfew being lifted and imposed once again, we were seeing people struggling to purchase their essential items in order to find ways to survive the curfew period. We came across an incident today. Let's first take a look.
Two traders from the Mullipothan area had arrived in Kantale with a stock of eggs. Our correspondent stated that the eggs which had been brought to the police station in the lorry had been distributed among certain traders. Following protests by residents in this regard, arrangements were made to sell these eggs on the roadside. I went near the Kantale police station after being informed that they were selling eggs. By that time, the police station had obtained the required amount and several cases of eggs had been distributed among traders. These traders who are from Kantale sell these eggs at higher rates the next day. This is unfair. Those who are financially strong can purchase boxes of eggs. However, the poor can only obtain around 10 or 20 eggs. They sold the eggs to the people only after the police had obtained what was required. Afterwards, the vehicle was taken into the police station again. We couldn't purchase anything. This was the manner in which the lorry was taken into the police station, while a long queue of people were seen waiting to purchase these goods.
We know that the police officers are fulfilling an exceptional task when it comes to tackling the COVID-19 virus in the country. We have seen their efforts, we have seen their tireless efforts when it comes to tackling this issue, and we commend and appreciate the effort made by the police officers to help the country at a time like this. However, incidents of this nature take place only because of a handful of officers in the country. It's understandable that they too have their families to look after, they have their children to take care of, but a system has to be in place in order to resolve issues like this and to make sure that such things don't happen in the country again. But the question is, can we allow these things to happen in the country? Moving on, Government Medical Officers Association has warned that if social distancing is not carried out, the number of coronavirus affected cases will rapidly increase between 25th of March to the 7th of April. GMOA says if such measures are not followed, the capacity of physical resources would reduce in quantity and quality.
102 COVID-19 patients have been detected in Sri Lanka. 3 out of the 102 have recovered and 99 are still receiving treatment. In its latest situation report, the GMOA says, quote, based on estimates of Hubei province, China, Published by Johns Hopkins Hospital, USA, at present, the number of true cases should be eightfold of the current confirmed cases, end quote. It added, quote, therefore, it can be technically assumed that at present, 550 affected individuals are circulating within the population. A portion of this 550 may be either under quarantine centers or under home quarantine, end quote. The report added that these 550 possible patients have had a total of 19,000 contacts. It also said if advices are not followed through by the public, healthcare workers would have to be subjected to quarantine due to exposure to infected people and thus cause a considerable decline in human resources.
This quarantine process and also the contact tracing process is very important for the further reduction of the outbreak within the society. Prevention of community spread of this disease is very important because once you get into the community spread, the whole scenario will change. At the moment, we are only getting around 102 cases which are confirmed through the specific tests. Out of these 102, 32 are directly from the quarantine centers. We can assume that the number from the community is around 7. We can presume that when we diagnose around 70 patients from the community, there are around 560 patients who are undetected within the community. That is a very dangerous phenomenon. Therefore, we have urged authorities to enhance the contact tracing process. If the social distancing and the contact tracing fails, and on the other hand, the people does not obey the decisions taken by the health authorities and the regulations placed by the government, there is a huge risk that we will get a peak of the cases in and around 7th of April.
Director General of Health Services, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, expressed the following views.
Social distancing and cleansing your hands are important to avoid being affected by COVID-19. Yesterday, we saw that after the curfew was lifted, people in certain areas maintained a distance from each other, both in and outside stores. However, this was not the situation at markets and small shops. There could be certain obstructions to the process of practicing social distancing, which we aim to achieve by imposing a curfew. During a meeting with Basil Rajapaksa, Health Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi and other officials, a decision was made to supply certain essential services near the residences of the people. Talks revolved around supplying services such as food and medicine to the people near their homes.
2,797 people have been arrested for violating the curfew imposed in the country. According to the police, this group was arrested between 6 p.m. on Friday and 12 noon today, while 729 motorbikes and three-wheelers have also been seized. 115 of the suspects were arrested between 6 a.m. yesterday and 12 noon today. 23 vehicles had been seized by police during this time frame. Meanwhile, travelling across districts have been completely prohibited and the police have set up additional barricades since last night. DIG Ajit Rohana said that these measures were carried out as per instructions of the Acting Inspector General of Police, C.D. Wickramaratne.
The curfew in place for all other districts in the country except the Colombo, Gampaha, Kaluthara and Puttlam districts and the northern province will end at 6 a.m. tomorrow. According to the police, curfew will be imposed in these districts at 12 noon tomorrow. Curfew will be in effect in the Colombo, Gampaha and Kaluthara districts until further notice. Curfew imposed in the Puttlam district and 5 districts in the northern province will be lifted at 6 a.m. the day after tomorrow. In these districts, curfew will be reimposed at 12 noon on the same day. The President's Media Division stated that permission has been granted to engage in farming activities even when curfew is in effect. Permission has been granted for the transport of rice, vegetables, fish, animal feeds, medicine and other essential items during curfew. The government stated that the Minister in charge of Agriculture and Industry must regulate these activities. Meanwhile, the general public can contact the police on any of the following numbers in the event of any problem they face during curfew. In addition to the 119 police hotline, the following numbers have been introduced. They are 011 244 4480 and 011 244 4481. The police informed the general public to contact these numbers in event they are facing issues including health issues, power outages, water cuts and other general problems that they may face. The Acting Inspector General of Police has instructed personnel at all police stations to act swiftly on complaints received on these matters.
Earlier today, I spoke to our reporters in Australia, the United Kingdom and India to get an understanding about the prevailing situation in their countries. Let's take a look at that pre-recorded segment. COVID-19, or what's mostly referred to as coronavirus, is highly discussed here in Sri Lanka as well as internationally. So we have our reporters joining us from India, United Kingdom and Australia via WhatsApp to tell us the situation that they are facing in their respective countries. Let me start with Australia. Maisha, tell us the situation in Australia right now.
Yes, Azra, the time is currently 7 p.m. and the situation is quite serious. The government has now announced stronger distancing rules and more stringent measures are in place to keep people indoors. The government is also sending out texts to everyone, urging them to maintain 1.5 meters away from others to help to stop the spread, as well as reminding us to always wash our hands and to stay indoors at home if we're feeling sick. Essential services are continuing, but people are still asked to remain indoors.
Well, thank you, Maisha. Moving on to India. Karthika, what is the situation in India?
Yeah, hi Astra. It is around 2:40 p.m. In India here. Currently, government is taking all the necessary precautions to keep the situation under control. Last Sunday we had a successful trial run of lockdown here. So further to that, PM has announced another 21 days of lockdown starting since midnight yesterday. So as of now, streets are really quiet with very few number of people roaming outside, that too for the essential services. PM has also assured the people that there is no need to panic as all the essential services will be continued and daily essentials like milk, vegetables, etc. will be available throughout. So that's the current situation here. So we are hoping for the best.
Thank you, Karthika. Ishara, you are joining us from the United Kingdom. What is it like in the UK right now?
Hi, I'm Ishara connecting from Leicester, United Kingdom. The time now is around 9:15 a.m. The coronavirus has been hitting the UK quite seriously within the last few days, with the total number of cases exceeding 8,000 and the total number of deaths reporting around 400. And on the 23rd of March, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced the people to stay indoors and restrict their movements other than for essential things such as buying essential food and medical supplies. He has asked people to go out once for daily exercises and those who take care of the people who are in need, and also for the essential services. Other than that, all the other people are asked to stay indoors. As a result, all the restaurants, pubs and bars are closed at the moment. However, the shops which are selling essential items such as the supermarkets and convenience shops are kept open. Other than that, the online services such as food delivery systems, essential delivery systems are still operating. And that's the current scenario in the UK.
Thank you, Maisha, Ishara and Karthika for joining us on our news broadcast. Now, those are the updates from Australia, the United Kingdom and in India. So what is happening in other countries of the world? Let's take a look.
According to the palace officials, Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne, has tested positive for coronavirus. The palace statement said, quote, he has been displaying mild symptoms but otherwise remains in good health and has been working from home throughout the last few days as usual, end quote. The spokesperson says his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, has also been tested but has not received the virus. The royal couple are now self-isolating at home in Scotland, adding it was, quote, not possible to ascertain from whom the prince caught the virus, end quote. Spain has now become the world's second highest tally of coronavirus deaths after 738 more were reported today, the country's deadliest toll in one day. With a death toll of 3,434 coronavirus patients, Spain surpassed China's death toll of 3,285. Italy still has the most deaths of any nation in the world with 6,820. Infections in Spain also rose 20% from a day earlier to 47,610. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has warned that his government is said to impose tough new measures against the coronavirus. He said they would include restrictions on movement and were likely to be difficult for the public. Despite being by far the hardest hit country in the region, Iran has so far resisted lockdowns. It has reported 2,077 deaths linked to COVID-19 and 27,017 cases, although the actual figures are thought to be higher. The Israeli government has approved new restrictions that will take into effect at 5 p.m. Israeli time. Foreign media reported that people were likely to be required to stay within 100 meters of their homes. 5 people have died in Israel and another 2,030 have been infected. Dubai Airlines Emirates has become the largest international carrier to completely ground its fleet in response to the pandemic. It came after the authorities in the UAE, which has reported 248 confirmed cases and 2 deaths, and closed all its airports. Italy, the world's most affected country, has increased punishments for breaking its control measures, including fines of thousands of euros and 5-year prison terms for anyone who tests positive for the coronavirus and breaks quarantine. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has denied suggestions that the lockdown will last until July, saying it will end as soon as possible. France has become the 5th country to suffer more than 1,000 deaths since the outbreak began, and Jérôme Salom, the country's top health official, has warned that the numbers could be even higher. The 1,100 confirmed total only counts people who died in hospitals. Scientific advisors say that strict lockdown measures are the only effective tool and wanted to expand it up to 6 weeks from the initial 15-day period. India has asked 1.3 billion people to stay at home for 3 weeks to slow the spread of the coronavirus. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has imposed a nationwide lockdown in an attempt to slow the spread of the virus. The restriction came into force at midnight and will be enforced for 21 days. Modi said in a televised address, quote, "There will be a total ban on venturing out of your homes," end quote. He appealed for the people not to panic, but crowds quickly mobbed stores in the capital Delhi and other cities. Foreign media says it is not clear how or even if the people will now be allowed to buy food and other essentials. The new measures follow a sharp increase in cases in recent days. There have been 519 confirmed cases across India and 10 reported deaths.
Today, we inquired into the situation surrounding the distribution of essential items across the country. The police stated that permission has been granted to transport essential items from the Peta market to other districts in the country. The decision was reached after the police held discussions with vendors' unions at the Peta Manning market this morning.
The curfew does not in any way curtail the distribution of essential items across the country. The Manning market will operate from 4 a.m. as usual. Vendors at the Manning market will also not face any issues in travelling to the market. The officers on duty have been instructed to allow them to go to the market. When the essential items are taken to the other districts, again there will be no issue in selling these items, as the DIGs of these areas have been instructed to allow these vendors to sell their vegetables as well as rice, dal and other essential food items.
We hope to provide these items to the general public without any delays. During these few days, we request only wholesale vendors to arrive at the market between 4 a.m. and 2 p.m.
When we toured the Manning market, we noticed that the wholesale vendors are holding back certain items like dal and salmon tins without selling them to vendors from other districts.
Each village has a Satosa outlet. There is enough of places where dal and salmon is available in Colombo. Why are these items only issued to Satosa outlets? We are allowed to purchase these items so that we too can sell them to the people in villages. People will be able to purchase these items from multiple locations without standing in line for it. They have tanks full of these items and they are only issuing them to Satosa outlets. So it's not a surprise that people are being inconvenienced.
The Dambul Economic Centre has made arrangements to transport goods to other regions of the country. The situation of the economic centre showed signs of returning to normalcy after several days. Harvests reaped during the Maha season were purchased from farmers despite the ongoing curfew. This is how farmers from Polonnaruwa transported paddy to a private mill in the area. Although there were delays in harvesting due to the curfew, farmers were able to sell their goods after the government granted them permission to continue farming even during the curfew.
Many divisional officials gathered today in many areas to discuss the procedure of distributing necessary food items to the people in their respective areas. A discussion was held at the Gampaha District Secretariat, chaired by Gampaha District Secretary Sunil Jailath, with the participation of security, health and state officials. We decided to take action to curb the spread of the virus with the assistance of the divisional medical health officers. We are hoping to join hands with private institutions as well. The Ampara Urban Council also called for a special meeting and allocated 5 million rupees for the distribution of necessary goods. The Ambalangoda Urban Council also called for a special discussion today. The issue at hand is that we are finding it difficult to find salmon and dal that is being given at a concessionary rate. We have only received 30 salmon tins and 21 bags of dal so far from what we have ordered.
Economist and former MP Dr. Harsha De Silva spoke about the current economic situation of the country.
Since 1976, China is going to have a negative growth in the first quarter. The US has poured in or has proposed to pour in over $1 trillion, and yet the markets have tanked. Europe is doing pretty badly. So across the world, we will see unprecedented slowdown in growth, which would then translate into on both the supply and demand side, falling or reducing both supply and demand. And we've seen the oil prices fall to $20 per barrel, not seen for decades. And some people are actually saying not only a recession, we may even go into a depression. Now, how is the world responding to it? People or governments with a lot of money pumping in money into the system. Now, for instance, the $1 trillion package in the US, or $500-600 million package in the EU and in Japan and China and Australia and places like that. First is we got to look at the people living on the margin of society. I'm talking about the people who have no monthly paycheck. Of the 8 million people, only 3 million people get a monthly paycheck. So the 5 million people either are daily wage employees, meaning people who are laborers and find some odd job, things like that. That's about 1.7 million. Then about another 2.5 million are what you call self-employed. That means they don't have anyone else working for them, but they run their own micro business. So if you put that 1.7 million and 2.5 million, you're talking about 4.2 million people. So that's a lot of people spread across all districts and 14,000 Grama Seva divisions. So the first and most urgent steps the government must take is to provide for the existence of these people. How do we support them? So multiple options are available. Some people say, okay, we can give them sort of a food, a packet, a grocery bag, some rice, some dal, some milk powder, so on. But is it logistically possible to provide this to every household? Now we just heard Colombo, Kalutara and Gampaha will be under lockdown pretty much till further notice, and groceries will be brought to people's homes. I really don't know how effective that's going to be, whether it is practically possible to do this. Another way would certainly be to have grocery stores open, but give a one-time pass, which means a person can go in every 10 minutes or so and then spend 20 minutes in the store and come back out. So that way you don't have people congregating in one place, but rather have the grocery stores open right throughout, which I believe is a much better choice or much better option than the one, the unmitigated disaster of this morning. So we got to rethink this strategy. And we really have to understand the public distribution system in Sri Lanka, what is possible, what is not. But cash transfers to people would be a better way. Transfer the cash to people and then let the markets, the stores, the fairs be open throughout and control the inflow into these outlets.
Banking service has been made an essential service. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed for banks to remain open during curfew period. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also requested international donor agencies to provide a moratorium on debts obtained by the country, considering the current situation surrounding COVID-19.
Issuing a statement, the President's media division stated that the President has requested international donor agencies to provide a debt moratorium or debt deferment facility to all developing nations vulnerable to the COVID-19 risk. The President had urged the Director General of the World Health Organization to forward this request to multilateral and bilateral lending agencies. He had pointed out that this relief would be helpful to manage social distancing, public health and social security systems in those countries.
The Anunayaka Theros of the Askari and Malwatu chapters issued a special statement today.
There are examples of how some countries took steps to ensure the safety of the people within a short period of time. Abide by the directives of the police, public health inspectors and doctors by bearing in mind the steps taken in countries such as Cuba, Russia, Japan and China to mitigate the spread of the virus, including the areas from which it originated. I wish to state that it is our responsibility to contribute in every way possible to the society with compassion to the best of our abilities. This is the time to show commitment and not protest against things. Although the facilities which were available in our lives are not there at present, we should learn to overcome those shortcomings and move forward. It is important to abide by the instructions provided by the government. Otherwise, we are heading into a dangerous situation that could cost many lives.
The second batch of people who completed the quarantining process upon returning to the country this morning left their respective centers this morning.
The army said that 57 people from the Poonani quarantine center and 144 from the Kandakadu quarantine center had left for their homes today. Those in the Kandakadu quarantine center had arrived from Italy, Iran and South Korea when the virus had been spreading in those areas earlier this month. The army undertook steps to transport these people to their homes in Kandy, Mathura, Hambantota, Kurunagala and Gaul. There might have been shortcomings. They took great care of us and made arrangements to provide us with the needful. We wish to express our gratitude to the army, the police and the health ministry. Meanwhile, one of the groups that left the quarantine camp in Poonani today was redirected to the facility this afternoon. Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva said that this was after a child in the group had developed a fever.
We have identified 163 people who have completed the 14-day quarantine period. Arrangements will be made to facilitate them to return to their homes tomorrow.
The Public Health Inspectors Union of Gampaha convened a media briefing today.
Crowds of people were seen waiting to purchase their goods. The objective of the curfew was lost as a result of lifting the curfew for 8 hours. The consequences of this will be experienced in future. In the Gampaha district, supplying food to approximately 2.5 million people is a big problem. If this issue is not addressed correctly, there is a possibility that the people may take to the streets within a few days demanding for food. If that happens, then our efforts will go in vain. Generally, N95 masks are required while examining a patient. However, such masks are not available at present. None of the relevant officials have taken steps to provide a kit to be worn on top of a uniform. We do not know what the future will have in store for us.
Anuruddha Kumar Disanayake expressed the following views via social media today.
In order to defeat such a crisis, a government mechanism itself is not sufficient. You need a collective effort. All contributions that can be made from our end to face this challenge are being done at present. We believe that the current state mechanism in place will be an optimistic approach towards curbing the spread of the virus and winning this challenge. The public has a huge responsibility at this time. Due to curfew restrictions, the public will face many inconveniences, and we urge the public to be patient and understanding. Our proposal is that curfew restrictions should be extended. We cannot estimate as to how far the virus has spread in Sri Lanka, and will the number of patients increase or not in the future. We witnessed how the public deviated from complying with health guidelines when the curfew was lifted. A shortage of essential items was created. There are many small and medium-scale businesses in our country. We must look into a mechanism to revive these businesses as well. This was a matter that was proposed by us before. We need a mechanism that would enable us to jointly manage and operate these businesses. The government has not looked into this matter as yet. During the meeting with all party representatives yesterday, our faction showed the importance of having such a mechanism in place. We think convening such a meeting is a positive step ahead. We must now make sure that this initiative will not be limited to a discussion and will be implemented soon.
Patients experienced difficulties as the Medicine Rural Hospital in Matra had been closed off this morning.
This was the situation witnessed in the hospital this morning. Patients who had arrived to obtain medicine experienced difficulties as a result of this situation. Our correspondent stated that doctors and hospital staff had not reported to work today.
Employees at the Katunayake Export Processing Zone have been affected due to the ongoing curfew in the country.
Approximately 20,000 employees at the export processing zone had been affected due to the current situation. They complained that they have been affected due to the shortage of food.
The Gamatha team has begun receiving entries for its arts competition, which is being held under the theme Nagitimu Sri Lanka. These artworks, which have been sent from many parts of the country, portrays the future of Sri Lanka. The top 10 artworks are those which were received by this morning, were chosen by Jagat Padmasiri, a lecturer at the University of the Visual and Performing Arts.
Gamadda, Nagitimu, Sri Lanka.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst Imam Azra, we thank Brian De Cruz for interpreting our news broadcast tonight for the differently abled. Thank you for joining us. Take care and good night.